Looking for extra security around their home, one Lakeview couple spent thousands of dollars on a new fence.
Yeah, but more than a year later, that fence still is not up. They turned to the Fox 8 defenders because it's not the first time we've heard concerns about a particular fence contractor.
When we've already invested $6,000 in this company, it's hard to walk away from that kind of money.
Leisha and Rob Fink signed a contract with a local fence company to install an iron fence around their Lakeview home.
I think it was January 17th of 2020.
They wrote Chris Chauvin of Crescent City Ironworks 2 checks, one in January 2020 for $3,000, a down payment. Then 2 weeks later, when the fence post went up for $2,820, they'd pay the balance once the job was complete.
He said he was going to have this thing up in a couple of weeks. We had the poles in place before the Super Bowl that year, and that was the last work that was ever done.
Nearly 16 months later, and after payments totaling almost $6 grand, this is all the Finks have: a bunch of posts and no fence.
He didn't prime and paint them correctly, and so now they're rusting. He didn't put caps on the top of them, so they were collecting water every time it rained.
Fink says he actually covered them with plastic so they wouldn't fill with water. Their experience sounds very similar to the one Cynthia McRae had.
I was so upset because that wasn't a small amount of money.
Like the Finks, a Fox 8 Defenders investigation last year found that she paid Chauvin, the same fence contractor, thousands of dollars, a down payment toward an iron fence that would run alongside her uptown home. But for months, these unprimed, unpainted posts were all that was installed. A situation that closely resembled the Finks property.
Mr. Chauvin, don't argue with me. You argues, you telling me you coming, I can't rely on your conversations.
When she reached out to the Fox 8 Defenders, I tracked down Chris Chauvin at his shop in Kenner. He told me off camera he's a small business that has struggled to find skilled people willing to work in the midst of a pandemic. Soon after that conversation, workers finally finished McRae's fence. She waited nearly 5 months. For the Finks, the wait has been so much longer.
This was before COVID shutdown, so he was going to have everything in before Mardi Gras that year.
After dozens of texts and phone calls to Chauvin and visits to his Kenner shop trying to get answers, they reached out to the state attorney general. A local attorney even wrote a letter to Chauvin on their behalf. Still no action.
So after your story aired, we found out from one of Chris's actual workers that the story had aired and that we were not the only ones in the area.
They saw our Fox 8 Defenders report with McRae, and they too turned to us for help.
COVID gave him a fresh arsenal of excuses.
It gives you a story about, well, I've been sick, or my mother's been sick, or she's got COVID, or my workers are out, but I'm going to be right on it tomorrow. Or I've got this other job, I got to get out real quick, and then I'm going to be on yours. And so it's always just right around the corner, and then it never happens.
Once again, I reached out to Chauvin by email April 9th, and almost immediately, hours later, he responded. He wrote, "I have made arrangements to have the Finks job completed with different workers. I no longer have a shop. I am trying to clean up everything left behind from past jobs." A few days later by phone, he explained he's once again having trouble finding dependable workers to finish the job, so he's hired a subcontractor to fabricate the panels and install them here at the Finks home.
He dropped off some materials to our house, and it's our understanding that the materials to fabricate the panels are now at the shop where they're being built. And we've actually spoken to one of the men at the shop where they're being fabricated. So we have a little more to go on than just his word, the owner's word, that it's happening.
Fink says in the past few days, the contractor dropped off a box of finials that will finish off the fence posts.
Had you not made contact to him, then we would still be, he would still be dodging our calls and messages, and we would have no progress whatsoever.
progress with a fence they've already spent nearly $6,000 on. A fence they invested in for an extra layer of security that should have been completed more than a year ago, before the COVID-19 pandemic started in early 2020.
The contractor, Chris Chauvin, says his subcontractor is fabricating the fence panels this week and should begin installation this weekend. He says not only has it been difficult finding skilled workers since the pandemic, but the cost of materials has also gone up. We will follow up and let you know what happens with that family's fence. If you've got a consumer issue you'd like us to look into, call the Fox 8 Defenders, staff with volunteers from the National Council of Jewish Women, the NCJW, or you can also fill out our online complaint form.